right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across this beautiful blue-green globe of ours. Welcome to Real News Live Evening Edition. It is a toxically masculine Tuesday night show with all the boys. Steve Doran, I love that picture Blake found of you. You look like you're about 15 years old in that picture.
Hey,
and
dude, that's only 10
your
that
balls,
picture.
have your balls dropped yet? Have your balls even dropped?
No, it's like that picture's only 10 years old.
Yeah, right. Okay, there we go. Yeah,
no, it's
sure.
true. That was taken 10 years ago when I was on a cattle drive.
Wow, you look better. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, and so did you, jackass. I remember you about 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Thinner.
I look better. I look better. Great to be here. I'm your host, Mike Barra in Las Vegas, Nevada, joined by that guy over there, my buddy, the trail boss, from somewhere in nowhere, Fuckville, Arkansas, Steve Doran. Steve, how you doing tonight, and what are you drinking?
I am drinking Knudsen organic Concord grape mixed with, because it's really strong, Mountain Valley spring water. Nice.
I'm drinking Dr. Pepper with a little scotch in it, but it's frozen, so I can't. Don't you hate that when you can't do anything? I mean, all right. The guy below Steve, kitty corner for me, is, of course, familiar to millions. It is TV's Blake Wally, somewhere east of California. TV's Blake Wally, how are you doing tonight? Your beard looks excellent. You got the salt and pepper thing going. And once again, he's hanging out in the strip club that he owns in the somewhere east of California area. How are the girls tonight? They just rolling in, or is it going to be late shift time starting at 10 or 11 tonight? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, it's a late night party over here in the Neon Lounge. So we're getting ready for that underway after the show.
Lounge.
You guys are all invited if you want to come.
All right. Sounds great. And, of course, we're also joined by special guests. Oh, sorry, Blake. What are you drinking tonight?
Oh, a little Frontier whiskey, Bullet Bourbon.
Frontier Whiskey Bullet Bourbon. All right. And we're joined, of course, by the interim, temporary member of the team. But, Brian, we don't look at you that way. The New American Media's Brian Engelman sitting in for the still vacationing Dr. Brooks Agnew. Brian, how you doing? And I'm sorry about your Browns, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Happy to be here. My Browns look really bad this year, and Mike and I are going to unpack that this Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Strictly Football. He's a Seattle Browns fan, but we're going to cover the entirety of the league, and we're going to all commiserate together. We're all going to – well, I'm going to cry, and you're going to laugh being undefeated with the elite Geno Smith under center.
Yeah, there was a guy, you don't remember this, and I'll try to find the punch here, but there's a guy named Mike Quarry. Mike Quarry was the little brother of Jerry Quarry, who was a famous heavyweight who fought Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Ellis and all those guys back in the 60s and 70s. And Mike Quarry was 40-0, undefeated, beat everybody they put in front of him. And then he faced New Mexico's own Bob Foster, who was the light heavyweight champion at the time, I think in 1972. And they asked Foster, well, why do you think Mike Quarry's undefeated? And Foster said, because he hasn't fought anybody. And then in the fourth round, he hit him with one of the best one-punch knockouts I've ever seen. I mean, the guy was literally like, and Mike Quarry never recovered from that. So it's one thing to be 3-0. It's another thing to be 3-0 and actually beating somebody. I got to find that knockout.
I will accept that, but we just lost to the New York Football Giants, and they did it somewhat convincingly.
That's bad.
Anyway, we'll talk about that. Happy to be here. I'm sipping on a Heineken this evening. Blake invited us to the party. I'm wondering if he's having a freak off tonight. Is this like a private Diddy party? Seems to be all the news. I don't know. Maybe we can find out.
It is a 74. My brother filled me in. The knockout was a 74. I got to find that because it's like you just see these two guys. They both throw a punch. All of a sudden, boom! The guy's head just goes. All right. That brings us to the first subject tonight, which is that P. Diddy, the Jeffrey Epstein of the music business, or at least the rap hip hop business, has been arrested and looks like he's going to get charged with a whole bunch of crimes, and a whole bunch of stories are coming out. And it is a pretty bizarre situation. Now, you guys covered it earlier today, probably on the Agree to Disagree show. So I thought we would start with, why don't we just get quick opinions from Blake, starting with you, and then Brian, and then we'll play a little video and talk about it a little bit more. Blake, what do you think about the situation? And is it as bad? Is it as bad for the music industry or the hip? I don't really consider rap and hip hop music, but is it as bad for that industry as it looks right now on the face of it?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people that are going to get pulled into this, and it could just, other musical acts as well as athletes, politicians, various celebrities. It's a lot, so it's a massive problem for him. He's basically screwed. He's looking at probably 30 years. Has bail denied twice. I don't think there's any way he's going to get out of this without. I don't think his lawyers can really do much.
Yeah, I
heard get him by the balls.
50 million bail. I would think he'd have that money, but I don't think anybody wants him out of there. And they put him in the jail cell next to where Jeffrey Epstein was apparently murdered. Wild, Brian. You can't make this shit up, can you?
No, but I did live out in Hollywood for a while. I lived out in Los Angeles, and it's not surprising. But yeah, the scope of this is much wider than just the hip hop, just the rap community. This stuff, I'm hearing that this is going to infiltrate into the country music scene. There's more stuff that's getting ready to come out about country music. This stuff goes into the actors, both in film and television. This goes into athletes. This goes into politicians. Some of these weird clips are coming out. You're seeing a Saturday Night Live skit where Obama kisses Justin Bieber. You're seeing Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, who's the new face of Pfizer commercials, being asked on the red carpet about the most freaky place they did it, and they said she brings up the Obamas, and then she gets in trouble for bringing it up, and they can't talk about it. Then he says, "Oh no, that was before they got elected." I mean, I think the merging of Hollywood entertainment with sports, ABC, ESPN, Disney, and politicians, this really is the Obama era. And that was kind of overlapping with the P. Diddy era. Like, there might be a nice solid decade of overlap there. This thing is going to unravel and have a lot of people attached to it. And just, you see some of the stuff about Usher and Justin Bieber. It gets really disgusting.
Usher deleted his entire Twitter history. Pink, who's probably a dude, deleted his or her entire Twitter history. Chrissy Teigen and a lot of these celebrities nobody really pays attention to, and John Legend, talentless fuck that he is. And there's a lot of stuff going around to the extent that most of these guys fucked Justin Bieber when he was a teenager. And let's just play a quick video. This is Nick Sodor played this video. Let's play a little bit about the political aspects of this, if we can. And there's no audio. Okay, where's my audio?
It's up, but I'm not hearing it.
Yeah,
Blake and I had this issue in the studio earlier today, too.
Okay, I'm not hearing anything. So, all right, we are going to flip over to something else because you brought up. Hang on a second. You brought up. Let me see if we can get audio on this.
Hey, Blake, how did you fix it in the studio?
The famous one, and had to introduce her.
Okay, that was working.
To the paparazzi.
Yeah,
Now the whole world knows who she is.
That was Kamala Harris's debut when she was a side chick for Montel Williams. Okay, let me take that out of the sequence. So what I wanted to get to next was, Brian, you brought it up, but Steve, sports, politicians, we're going to get into country music here next. It looks like basically everybody who was anybody is involved in this. There's pictures of LeBron James in ladies' maids clothing before one of these freak off parties. What do you think?
Well, as you know, I worked out in Hollywood for a number of years, training actors and actresses to look like they knew what they were doing with guns and interrogating people and that type of thing. And I absolutely refused. When I was invited to go to parties after work, I wouldn't go. They were such sick, demented people that, other than collecting my paycheck, and my daily cash per diem, I wanted nothing to do with them. I never accepted any invitation to go anywhere or do anything with any of them. And, the reality is this has been covered up for years. I want to see everybody involved go to prison at the very least. I'd like to see them dead. Pedophiles deserve nothing less than a bullet.
Yeah.
But I want to see them go to prison and take some of their own medicine from some of those guys who are in prison can't wait for them to come in. I don't know how much is going to be revealed because Diddy may also, as I told you earlier this afternoon, may take a Jeffrey Epstein very quickly. So we got to watch that. And then I heard that they were also going after Garth Brooks for the same thing. Wow.
Well, you guys just keep spoiling my segues. So there are some. This is apparently, like you said, Brian, going to be reaching into the country music scene. Let's slide over here and take a look at a video that came out that just kind of reminds people about some really weird coincidences about Garth Brooks' career. Let's go with that.
What in the thunder rolls and the lightning strikes is going on with you, Garth? It's in the eyes for me. I woke up this morning and saw a podcast. Oh my goodness, I'm going to show it to you.
The Garth videos made it all the way to last week tonight, the John Oliver show. I just like that it's broadening.
Well, yeah, look, we broke the story on Your Mom's House ages ago when he first came to Facebook, and he was like, this is slick stuff, neat stuff. I'm good to break down the walls. We're like, what is wrong with this guy? So we've been pushing the story, and it's about time HBO has picked it up as well.
And then the next step, I think, for all of us is probably 60 Minutes. Once they do a piece on then it's game over.
Then we're finding bodies.
Then when the task force is on the property and they got cadaver dogs.
Yep.
And they're like, holy shit.
This is for entertainment and educational purposes only, TikTok. So apparently they're all saying that his tour dates line up with missing persons. Now, I'm not saying that I believe it or I disbelieve it, but at this point, with what we know about the music industry and Hollywood, I would say that nothing is out of the realm of possibility. They said somebody even showed up at the concerts, like more than one person with signs that said, "Where are they, Garth?"
Wow. That a serial killer is finding it in their heart to say karma for the other person. Like, this man has... people are saying this man is responsible for hundreds of missing people, and he's gonna say that it's karma.
Well, yeah, somebody mashed up. I saw something where they mashed up like tour dates with missing people.
That's the whole idea. That's the premise of this idea. Like, people are like saying that I'm, like trolling the guy.
So my question to you is, do you think it's possible? Number one, Garth Brooks' creepy hit That Summer would never get released today. Brooks has a discography that could rival just about anybody in country music. One of the best-selling musicians of all time, the man is still selling out stadiums across the country and even stadiums across the pond. And one of his biggest hits is a song called That Summer, released in 1993. It was the fourth and final single from his album, The Chase. The song was written by Garth Brooks himself, Pat Alger, and Brooks' wife at the time, Sandy Mall. The song tells the story of a teenage boy that goes to work for a lonely old woman who is a widow. She starts getting all hot and bothered, puts on a dress, and essentially seduces the kid who is a smurgeon. And now that I've been looking through some of his songs and the lyrics, I'm a little bit creeped out. We were all fast asleep back in the day. So first question, do you think this is possible? And do you know any other details?
Okay, so that's kind of the essence of what people are saying, which is that, and there's more to it. There's also a period in time when Garth Brooks suddenly completely made himself over. He shaved everything. Grew a little soul patch and cut his hair. I'll try to find a picture of that where he looked like a completely different person and didn't play country music. I think he did a rock album or something. And they're saying his tour dates line up with people that have been murdered. Steve, looks like you got something you want to say about this. Why do you hit it?
Well, first of all, he's a liberal, evil bastard. The guy the guy couldn't be more evil. If you watch videos of him, even when he's with his fans, I watched him with a Down syndrome young man who could mimic him perfectly. And he sat there literally eating like jujubes or something, throwing them in his mouth, totally disconnected, totally somewhere else, like the most crazy, crazed individual you've ever seen. And he started getting irritated that this kid was so good and ended up, I remember the video, ended up he like walked away. Didn't say anything, whatever. He was, I mean, he's got all kinds of mental problems, in my opinion. And he deserves, I mean, and let's face it, when you're in the service, when you're in special operations, when you're a policeman, you can't say, oh, this guy looks like a serial killer, or that guy looks like a serial killer, or this guy looks like he would do a good job, or whatever. Looks don't mean anything. Position doesn't mean anything. The most nondescript wallflowers that you've ever met were the most hideous murderers and child abductors, child molesters you've ever met in your life, and you would never suspect them in a million years if you just saw them walking down the street. So looks don't mean anything. Money doesn't mean anything. There are evil people out there in every walk of life, and he is definitely one of them.
Yeah, and here is that sort of alternate personality that he came up with. I forget what it was called. Somebody said Chris Gaines. I don't know if that's. Let me play this video real quick.
Holding up. Yes, sirree, the barefooted man before you with the emo haircut is the one and only Garth Brooks. But he's not Garth Brooks. No. This is a character called Chris Gaines. Garth Brooks is merely the vessel in which Chris Gaines' spirit lives. This story is so fucked up. Try to stay with me here because...
Okay, so, I mean, that's the essence of it. And it's like, okay, I get it. Performers, have alternate personalities on stage. Bono did the Fly thing back during the Zoo TV tour, but he didn't do that yet. This is a little weird. It's like a completely different person. Blake, what do you think the chances are that this guy, I mean, you look at the eyes and they look like Hakeem Jeffries' eyes. They look dead, like they're soulless. And isn't he basically saying somebody else can take over my body? Maybe Chris Gaines is the serial killer and Garth Brooks is the country music star.
I guess that is possible. I don't know if it's the MK Ultra. There's some of these programs where they can really cause you so much trauma, and they can kind of compartmentalize your brain, and you switch into different personalities. So it might be possible. I know there's something sinister about the guy. I know he's kind of told on himself once because he was kind of thinking he was going to be humble, but he was actually kind of like, no, I'm not really, that good of a guy. I can't remember exactly how it went, but it was kind of surprising. Like he was hiding something, but we didn't really know what it was. And with all the other people that are in this music industry or what have you, it seems that they have sold their souls. That would be weird if he's got like some kind of a body count like that. I mean, I was kind of thinking one of my favorite movies was Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which is the old game show host Chuck Barris, who used to play on the dating game. And he alleged that he was a CIA assassin, and he would go like chaperone like the dates from the contestants, and then he would go like on contract killings. So I don't know. I mean, people live these like double lives, so I guess nothing would surprise me at this point.
Yeah, I guess not. Brian, your thoughts on this Garth Brooks situation? Is he part of this P. Diddy thing that's going to come out? Country music? Are they going to be just as guilty as the rappers and hip hop guys? Wow. Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, pretty weird. What do you think, Brian?
I'll tell you what. I mean, I can definitely understand artists going into a metamorphosis. We saw with David Bowie. I mean, you could rattle off a list of a million people.
David Bowie had multiple characters, but none of them were serial killers, as far as I know. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the buzz going around here if you just type in Chris Gaines on X. But this story, this isn't relatively new. This has been going on for a long time, and this urban legend, as of yet, has been going on for a long time. But then again, all you got to do is look back at these videos of Diddy, the weird interviews that he's done with Barack Obama, the ones that
Yeah.
he's done on Conan O'Brien. They've left a trail of weirdness over the past 20 years. So is it surprising? I don't know. They're saying Garth traveled to Haiti as well. Okay, I don't know, but it's starting to seem like all of these stories are connected. By the way, John Legend, if anyone doesn't know where he's from, figured this out today. Springfield, Ohio. So I don't know what's happening in the Matrix, but we are getting a convergence right now, and it's just all of the spokes on the wheel. They're just converging right in the middle at this point. I don't get it, but it really does seem like the Matrix is imploding.
Yeah, it does seem that way, and I know a guy who wrote a book that said this was all going to happen by 2024. By the way, here is the Bob Foster Mike Quarry knockout, just so we can watch it real quick here. Coming up here pretty soon. Mike Quarry would be the white guy, and Bob Foster is the light heavyweight champion of the world. Round number 4. Just about 22 seconds left. Here we go. Boom! You didn't even see it. Punch was so goddamn fast you didn't even see it.
I think he's out cold too.
Yeah. I don't know why they counted to 10 because he wasn't getting up. So,
not the
anyway,
stretcher. That dude ain't
maybe the best one punch knockout I ever saw. Phenomenal stuff. And
and by the way, Blake played a video earlier on the Agree to Disagree show. What was that? That was what talk show was that next to Mike Tyson with Diddy? Talk about a knockout.
King and Ivory Wayne's, where he's trying to grab Mike Tyson's hand during a live interview.
It is
like
holding hands. Videos talking about one punch,
holding hands like watch this left hook. Bam! Oh, God. That's the most fucking perfect punch I've ever seen in my life.
I like his errant left as he's falling down, as if that's going to do anything.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, he was out cold by that time. All right. So, moving on to the other issues of the day. There's other stuff going on, and this one caught my eye. Earlier today, there was, of course, a second assassination attempt on Donald Trump. They're becoming so routine and so expected, we didn't even do a special show on it when it happened a week ago Sunday. But guess what? It turns out that the son of Ryan Ruth, the guy who was accused of attempting to kill President Trump, got arrested for, I'll give you 3 guesses. I'll give you 3 guesses, guys. He got arrested for possession of child pornography. Son of Ryan Ruth, accused in Trump assassination attempt, is arrested for child pornography. Orrin Ruth had hundreds of files of child pornography. Prosecutors said. Investigators say they discovered hundreds of files of child pornography in Guilford County, North Carolina, in connection with an investigation unrelated to child exploitation. So once again, we see this pattern where everybody involved on the left side of the aisle, Steve, appears to be a fucking pedo. Are you surprised by this? And what do you think it implies about the reasons this guy may have had for trying to kill Donald Trump? Because like father, like son, right?
Pretty much. They could
Louder.
Deal. Can you hear
Quiet.
me?
Yeah. A little
Can you hear
closer.
me now? Hello?
Yeah, that's better. Go.
Okay. All right. No, I mean, it's pretty typical that when you want to recruit an assassin, you have a lot of stuff to hold over their head, and you use that to manipulate them and get them to do your bidding. So, and if that guy, the dad, was into child pornography, I'm sure that he used his son on many occasions to trade files with other pedophiles. Sorry for pardon the pun. So it makes perfect sense to me. It also, when you work in Washington, D.C., as I have, I mean, those people are the most ruthless, moralists. I don't know if that's a word or not.
Immoral. Amoral.
People that you've ever met in your life. And if it benefits them, the sky's the limit. And it's absolutely disgusting. Like I told you, in the morning, I would have people on my side. By afternoon, they would cut a deal with somebody, and I was the Antichrist when the session would continue in the afternoon. and God knows what they were promised, and it wasn't all political.
Brian, thoughts on the shooter being connected now to child trafficking?
Well, I have several thoughts, because that accusation is the easiest one for anyone to pin the tail on the donkey. Like, it's the perfect thing that somebody could accuse you of, because how would you know? How would anyone ever know? It's probably the easiest thing to frame somebody for. So regardless of this current situation, anytime I hear that, it just, the spidey senses go up and go, all right, so what's happening here? So is this being used as leverage in some way? Like Diddy. So when the feds went into Diddy's place, did they investigate it so that they could claim all the materials to keep them and maintain their blackmail, and then off Diddy, just like they did with Epstein? It just kind of makes you wonder who's working for who, and how are the other players being used against the main character, kind of like you said. I don't know what to make of this, other than, like I said, I'm always cautious to jump when someone says, guess what was found on his computer? It's like, I don't know, whatever could have been planted there. Now, they could have been creeps. They could have. But I don't know.
I have a friend who, when I developed some enemies, he once said to me, well, do you want me to put child porn, kitty porn on his computer? I said, let's not go that far. In retrospect, maybe I should have. Jimmy Church, I'm talking about you. TV's Blake Wally. What do you think of this? I'm kidding. What do you think of this situation? And I mean, does this give the guy a motive? Do you believe that they were investigating, the shooting or something, and came across all this kitty porn on this guy's computer? Or what do you think's happening with this?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I guess any of those scenarios could happen. So it could have been unrelated. They're just looking at his text, trying to see his correspondence, because his dad is trying to assassinate the president. So they could have just inadvertently found that, maybe, or they could have absolutely planted that. It did happen to Stephen Paddock, the Mandalay Bay shooter, his brother, when he was blowing the whistle on how BS the old, story was. Then all of a sudden, they found it on him, and then I don't know where he is. They took him away somewhere where he'll never be able to speak out again. And as Steve says, it's probably like some operative blackmail leverage, and they'll use that stuff against you. But yeah, they do look like both are demented in the eyes. It wouldn't surprise me if he was that's what he was into. I guess it's all on the table until they can dig in more. It's just too bad the feds have him and not Florida State.
Because he's probably going to commit suicide if the feds have him. Don't you guys think? I mean, it's most likely outcome of this thing. The question is, how much longer can they keep covering this up until it becomes just so obvious that it's being covered up? And then what will happen once it gets out to everybody that this is all being covered up? Steve, you got any thoughts?
Well, it's like anything else. I mean, the general public's memory span is about 35 seconds. And just with the things that happened in recent times with Epstein and other issues that have come up, I mean, do you see anybody marching in Washington? Do you see anybody screaming and yelling other than people like ourselves? No. It's like everybody's afraid of the government. They're afraid that they're going to come after them. They're afraid that, I don't want to make any waves because I'll be identified as a militant TA attendee or whatever the case may be. And until the general public stands up, starts screaming their head off, storming public buildings and saying, we've had enough, nothing's going to change, because the government knows they can get away with it.
Yeah. Make the French Revolution great again. Okay. Something else happened this week. Last week we talked about the first Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, and we discussed the issue of whether the dead shooter on the rooftop was the guy they said it was, whether it was Thomas Crooks. And Blake, I think you remember, didn't we ask the question, if it's not Matthew Urich, the second guy who he has a birthmark, the shooter did, that matches Matthew Urich, not Thomas Crooks, the nose, the chin. We asked the question, if Matthew Urich is not the guy on the roof that's shot dead, where is Matthew Urich? Guess what? Roger Stone asked the same question this week. Let's hear what Roger had to say. Okay, great.
But they've already tried to kill him perhaps 3 times. I don't know enough about the most recent attack. I know the things in West Palm Beach are ridiculous. I mean, it's just not conceivable that this man acted alone. And I still have questions, as I say, about what happened on the 13th of the month. I'm still very interested and curious about a man named Maxwell Yerrick. I had a tip that Yerrick was either involved or the shooter. I speculated it online, just pointing out that Yerrick had a criminal record of assaulting Trump supporters outside rallies in Pennsylvania. He too had been to Ukraine. No, I never said that he was the shooter. I said some people thought he was the actual shooter. It caused a lot of people online to compare the photographs of the dead man and this fellow Yerrick. But it occurs to me that Yerrick was in Ukraine, and the same source tells me that Yerrick was in touch with Routh in Ukraine. I am not saying this is correct. I'm saying it is an interesting allegation that somebody of authority should investigate.
Okay, hang on.
First of all, Mr. Crooks is seen in a still photograph talking on the phone just before the shooting. He's talking to somebody. Who is he talking to? I had a number of tips that a man named Maxwell Yerrick was involved in Butler. I never put it forward as an assertion. I put it forward as a question. He had 2 prior arrests for assaulting Trump supporters outside Trump rallies, but what he has in common with this new shooter is they were both in Ukraine. And it appears they were both in Ukraine at the same time. So I'm digging into that. I'm not making any claim. I'm saying these are legitimate questions that need to be researched.
There's a picture of him on the phone. Whoever talking to somebody on FaceTime. There he is on the road. All right, so that is the question of the day. Steve, you're not easy to convince of things. You're my skeptical buddy. What are the chances that 2 guys who attempted to assassinate the same president 6 weeks apart are both, one of them, Maxwell Yerrick, who could be the guy in Butler? What are the odds that they're both in Ukraine at the same time? Ukraine is run by the CIA, and they both tried to kill Trump. What are the odds that that is just a coincidence?
0.
Yeah, you better watch that, because that's a it's a satanic sign. So
sorry.
I'm sure this is going to make it on the internet. Oh yeah, Barra's in the cabal. Yeah.
Anyway, 0. There's no way. I mean, the first shooting was obviously a setup. The Secret Service was not doing their job, intentionally not doing their job. The second scenario, there were way too many loose ends that were not cleared up immediately. I mean, nobody's patrolling the perimeter. Nobody's checking the perimeter. Nobody's, doing their job as a Secret Service agent. Like we said, a whack and hut security guard, who I am not, by the way. I love security guards. Anybody who's got a job, you're number one with me. But you guys would have done a better job than the Secret Service.
Yeah. Blake, what are your thoughts on this conspiracy theory that the shooter in Butler was Maxwell Yerrick, and then that means both shooters were together in Ukraine just a few months ago. Clearly, they're CIA assets. What do you think about this whole conspiracy theory?
I'd believe that. I think that's absolutely great. Yeah, it seems like a great place, or a great recruiting ground anyway, to get their assassins and their patsies. It'd be nice if we could compare the two, but it seems that they cremated the body of Thomas Crooks like 3 days afterwards or something. And of course,
Right.
they're stonewalling the entire investigation. So anything goes until we can rule it out.
Well, that's the thing. They cremated him so you couldn't do an autopsy and a DNA test and find out he was actually Matthew Yerrick. Brian, any thoughts on this? And do you think it will ever come out?
Well, it came out not too long ago that there was a certain hit list from a certain Ukrainian region. Remember, there were certain people on there that were on their hit list that were not Ukrainian nationalists supporting enough. They weren't anti-Putin enough. And yeah, Trump and a lot of people against this potential World War III were on that list. We even had Joe Biden flying in Zelensky to Pennsylvania to actively campaign against President Trump. I don't know what is going on and how Ukraine became the 52nd state.
Which is, by the way, completely illegal. Yeah, it's completely illegal. But yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I'm just trying to unpack this, how deep the rabbit hole goes, and could they be both linked to this Ukrainian monstrosity that's sending hundreds of thousands of people to early graves in body bags? Like, I don't know. It just seems like there's a better way to spend our time and better way to spend our hundreds of billions of dollars instead of money laundering to kill more innocent people for the military-industrial complex, so they can sell some more.
Let's see. I know what we can do with that money. How about protecting our own borders?
Yeah, how about in the border?
Yes.
Sorry to trample on your line there, Brian. I trampled on your line about Ukraine being the 52nd state. It's the money laundering state. That's why people are so desperate to keep the truth of what's going on out of the news, and why that's where all the, we send billions there. They go, then all the celebrities, the Hollywood types, and everybody goes in with their diplomatic, the congressmen with their diplomatic bags, and brings the money back.
One more point on that. They were also trying to push Zelensky and crew were trying to push some sort of funding that was Trump proof. Kind of coined that little turn of phrase, but something along the lines of, we need your administration to guarantee us funding that can't be overwritten once Trump takes office again. I mean, this is so far beyond the pale. I don't know what type of bribery and blackmail a la Diddy or Epstein is going on with Zelensky to Biden, but something is really off where we're taking orders from the little guy over there. It's getting really old. And to see that these two assassination attempts of Trump may have Ukrainian ties. When is enough enough? When is enough enough? Like, we're seeing this right in front of our faces.
Speaking of Zelensky, let's bring him back into the conversation.
So he learned those words from Blake.
That's enough of that. That's enough of that.
It just keeps. You could play that on a loop, and I wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Zelensky.
I thought this was Toxically Masculine Tuesday. I don't know what
you just cannot make this shit up. All right. Let's slide over. Speaking of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin this week, apparently in an interview, called out the Western elite for engaging in cannibalism, stating that they grew accustomed to filling their bellies with human flesh and their pockets with money. This ball of vampires has to end. Vlad, and apparently this is the legit translation, so let's let Vlad.
But the gist of it is different. The gist of it is that the so-called golden billion for centuries, for 500 years, they have practically lived off of other peoples. They were ripping apart these poor peoples, poor nations of Africa. They exploited Latin America. They exploited the countries of Asia. And of course, no one forgets this. And I have a feeling that it's not even about the leaders of these countries, even though it is a very important thing, but the common people of these countries. In their heart, they can feel what's happening. They can see our struggle for our independence, for our true sovereignty. And they see this connection with their aspirations to be truly independent, which is exacerbated by the fact that in the Western elites, there is a strong desire to freeze the current unfair state of things in international affairs. For centuries, they've been stuffing their stomachs with human flesh, and they've been stuffing their pockets with money, but they must realize that this ball of vampires is about to end.
Wow.
Holy shit, Steve! What do you think of that?
I think he's telling the truth, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, the Ukraine is one of the most evil countries out there. They are a bunch of Nazis, by the way. They were set up and trained by the Nazi regime. They remain Nazis until this day. And nothing surprises me. Not one thing surprises me that goes on over there.
Yeah. Like, thoughts on Vlad? I don't know what the definition of throwing down the gauntlet is, but it seems to me that if you looked it up in a dictionary, you'd see that video.
Yeah, he's definitely hitting him hard. If that's the proper translation and that's a literal definition of what he was actually saying, but I mean that could absolutely apply. We talked about like the Epstein client list and some of the dark stuff. So he obviously knows a lot more about what's going on there than I would. So I guess as Steve says, it might not be something we could be surprised about. So who knows what they're doing over there? But Ukraine is a disaster, and it's time to end this thing before it gets any weirder. And it just keeps getting weirder. And now they've, unless we get Trump back in there, they're going to keep prolonging this thing and keep dumping money into this. It's a lost cause, and it could end up annihilating everybody all over the globe if things escalate. So,
yeah.
And why are we supporting a country that outlawed church? I mean, they're supposed to be fighting for democracy in the American way and wanting to be like us, and they outlaw church.
You do that by outlawing church and elections. Yeah, that's how you fight for democracy, right? That's how it's done.
News media, right?
Brian, I think I need a Ball of Vampires T-shirt. I think that's this ball.
I can't hear you anymore.
Okay,
somehow what I think I need is a Ball of Vampires T-shirt. This Ball of Vampires needs to end. I think we need to come out with the Ball of Vampires T-shirt line for everybody, because I don't think Putin could have been clearer or more direct about what people all over the world are fighting.
Yeah, and all over the world, it seems like the game of Risk has gone into overdrive. It really is all hands on deck effort right now. You saw Emmanuel Macron coming out saying that he's calling for a new global order. This new world order that Hulk Hogan kind of mocked in the WCW and wrestling in the late 90s, based on George Bush talking about 1,000 points of light and a new world order. Everybody's pushing at the same time right now. And it seems like you're getting some allies, some strange bedfellows, some usual suspect opponents, and then a few wild cards. yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like Putin and Trump have seemingly aligned. China's definitely made inroads working with Russia. They're not. It's tough to figure out who's on which team, but you see up in Canada, Trudeau is completely playing for the wrong side of this struggle globally, and it's just all coming to a head. We're about what? How many weeks away from the election? November 3rd?
About 6, yeah. 5 or 6.
Just a little over a month. Just a little over a month, and the power balance could swing very wildly depending on what happens. And it's just kind of a question of what will happen. They saw that shooter, the second shooter at the Trump golf course about a week ago. Well, guess what? I mean, we were waiting forever for that trans shooters manifesto down in Nashville, but guess what came out? Oh, we finally got the shooter's letter, and it almost seems like he's calling a full court press. Sorry, I let you guys down. Someone else, go get them. How many assassination teams are operating right now? We're trying to unpack a lot of this, but we are not out of the woods yet. So I'm always kind of torn with Trump. Do you push harder to get as many votes so you can win, or do you have to go into the bunker like a designated survivor and try to wait this thing out because everyone's aiming at you? So I don't know. There's a lot happening at once right now.
And he said he's got $150,000 stashed that he will pay to anybody who actually finishes the job. And the DOJ puts it out. That is literally the legal equivalent of DOJ putting out a $150,000 contract on Donald Trump. Is it not, Steve?
It most certainly is. And since when do our government agencies condone someone being assassinated? Again, I mean, this world is so upside down and so ridiculous. It, like I said, it's beyond comprehension. The stuff that people are getting away with, and the American people are sitting there, well, as long as I got Facebook, I'm okay. As long as I can watch, whatever, internet TV, they don't care what's going on in the world one bit unless it affects them. If it starts affecting them, then they stand up and scream and yell. But if it doesn't affect them, they don't seem to care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad.
I blame all of this on the American people. I do. So, you can hate me if you want, but I blame every bit of this on the American people for not standing up for their country, for not doing what's right, for not moving forward with getting rid of these corrupt officials and forcing them to do what's right. So, you got nobody to blame but yourself. And so when I hear people whining and crying, it's like, what do? They don't do nothing except go on Facebook and go, that doesn't do crap. It's like, you got to get out there. You got to go to government meetings. You got to participate.
Or we just need to have no government meetings. And
you know what I'm
none of
talking
these
about.
people making these decisions that aren't any of their fucking business,
I know, but what I'm saying is that people,
whether I hang a flag in front of my house. I got news for you. It's not.
What I'm saying is that they go to these meetings. The government works for you. They're your employees. And yet you'll go to a meeting and let some government bureaucrat tell you to shut up, tell you that you're not allowed to speak. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, then the thing is, Steve, is that, not everybody has the money to then turn around and sue these guys. You could sue them for civil rights violations, but you got to have the money. And with the taxes so high, which we've allowed to happen, it's a vicious circle of frustration for people at this point. All right. Speaking of politics, let us talk about it. Some polls came out in the last few days. They show not only do the Teamsters favor Donald Trump by more than 60%. He's going to get 60% of the Teamster vote, but blacks, Latinos, Hispanics are all going pro-Trump. The numbers are some of the worst that for Kamala Harris. These are some of the worst numbers that anybody has ever seen. Let's do a quick coverage on this.
Is there a clip rolling?
I got nothing on my side.
Oh, okay. I can see it. Screen
Among black Muslims. She is not doing well. She is the worst.
Okay, did we hear that or no?
No, not in the beginning. We missed the
that,
beginning.
All right.
It's rolling now.
Let's try it again. She is the worst polling Democrat against Donald Trump in history on national polls. No one is performing worse than her. No one's performing worse than her among blacks, among Hispanics, the worst performing Democrat in modern history among those demographics, worst performing polling-wise among Jews. She is losing key factions of the Democratic base. Muslim voters, she's at under 50, she's at 52% in the latest CARE poll among black Muslims. She is not doing well. She is the worst polling Democrat.
Okay, so she is the worst polling Democrat in modern history. Quinnipiac, which is a far left liberal poll that always skews their polls towards the Democrats, came out with a poll this week that showed Trump slightly ahead in the national popular vote. And let me just tell you, if Donald Trump is within 3 points in the popular vote, he wins in an electoral landslide. All of the other polling is showing, they also showed Trump ahead basically in every swing state. And you have to remember, with the biases they build into their polls in favor of Democrats, the reality is Donald Trump is way ahead in this race. Brian, do you think, if he didn't say worse than her, he said worse than her. No one is doing worse than her in Democrat. Brian, do you think that do you think that with these kind of numbers, doesn't this make the next 4 to 6 weeks extremely dangerous? Because they can't allow this to happen. Doesn't something have to happen, like a war, like an assassination, or like the removal of Kamala Harris as the candidate?
Yeah, well, I would say they're definitely stuck with Harris at this point. What do they say in Wag the Dog? Never change horses in midstream. So something Steve was saying a moment earlier, though, about, who's to blame and it's Americans for not participating. I would just, it kind of got me thinking, well, what if? Now, I don't have any information that could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that 2020 was stolen. But let's imagine, just for, war game's sake, let's just play it out and pretend for educational and entertainment purposes. Imagine that Americans did overwhelmingly vote for a real leader in 2020. And our country was taken from us in a coup. I mean, I'm just trying to understand that possibility, that potentiality. It doesn't matter who people vote for; it matters who counts the votes. And as far as Harris being polling this low, and could something happen? I've been doing it. I've added it to the show on Agree to Disagree for maybe the past month, if not longer. But there's at least a written prayer and all of the text that go out on the Rumble and the YouTube accounts. And it's a prayer for both the Harris and Trump teams because, yeah, they've taken 2 shots at Trump. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to get him. What if Kamala Harris is the bigger target right now and she's the one that needs to be worried about her safety? Because I don't think anyone with eyes and ears could watch Kamala's performance over the past half year and be positive, be convinced, be encouraged by her energy and her competency. I mean, she might be worth more to the deep state, not in that position. So I do pray for her continued safety because I think she is a target of her own people. The snake eating its own tail.
That is a possibility that has been raised.
You could go down with P. Diddy.
Yeah. And The Simpsons apparently did a cartoon a few years ago showing Kamala Harris in a coffin. Dead.
Come on.
And
Jen, on a long enough timeline, I think most of us are
you
going to end
serious?
up.
I mean, is that for real?
Yeah, think what you want. I can't get my lighting right tonight. It's really irritating. Think what you want about Jen, my friend, the remote viewer, but she said about a month ago, I'm not sure. I don't think Kamala Harris I don't see her being alive on election night. So I'm a little curious about this. But Brian, I'm really glad that you brought up that there is no proof yet of election fraud, because the reality is, yes, there is. Here we go.
Where there is no clear record. example, we have 74,243 mail-in ballots where there is no clear record of them being sent. And just to be clear, here in the state of Arizona, there's EV32s and EV33s. EV32s is supposed to give a record of when a mail-in ballot is sent, and an EV33 is supposed to give a record of when the mail-in ballot is received. And so there should be an equal, there should be more EV32s, more sent out than there are that are received. Specifically with these, we can tie them to a specific individual that was mailed to. And so we have 74,000 where we have them came back from individuals where we don't have a clear indication that they were ever sent out to them. But we have 74,243.
There it is. That was today. That was September 24th. Kerry Lake put that out. 74,000 invalid ballots in a state that was decided by 13,000 votes in favor of Joe Biden. And we know there's lots more. So, Brian, there is proof. And there's lots of there's Georgia. There's lots of other cases like that.
Proof. And that's the other thing. I mean, that's what's so irritating. The Maricopa County superintendent destroyed all the ballots. So that they couldn't be rechecked, couldn't be recounted. Did anybody do anything? Nope. It's just like, well, I guess they're gone, and he still has his damn job.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Is these people need to start going to prison? Blake, any thoughts on that? On this last bit of the conversation, what do you think? What do you think about? Let's go to predictions. Let's just call this predictions, Blake. What do you see for the next 4 to 6 weeks? What is it? 5 weeks before the election?
Yeah, I mean, everything's on the table. I mean, the deep state is dangerous. They're backed into a corner. I think they've anticipated that they were going to get rid of Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. So now that they're scrambling. Now, what do they do for plan B? Or was it to try to get this other goofball to jump out of the bushes at Mar-a-Lago? Or are they going to be planning other things because they are hurting his security detail? It seems that he's got moles on the inside. They've got it out for him. They need to take him out before he takes them out, and that could be including starting a war. They've got some weird things going on with contingency plans, and they know the internal polls are bad. No matter how much they try to make it look like it's still like a close race and it's still 48-47 or what have you, we know that's BS. They know it's BS. And they're in a lot of trouble. They're trying to do everything they can to do something with this election, and we're calling it out now. One of the things that's been exposed is these overseas ballots. I think Al Bundy in the chat said something about that. Yeah, so they're just mailing these unsolicited ballots out, and now they're even the overseas one. They're actually doing them by email. So there's no chain of custody whatsoever. There's no way to prove it, and then if the courts won't look at the information, and I'm glad you brought up the the Maricopa thing. They did pull up all kinds of anomalies there, and they weren't really allowed to investigate any further, and they never got anywhere with the Dominion, the machineries, which is another big problem. So, and you got like Texas, Oklahoma, they're getting rid of tens of thousands of people that they're pulling their off these dirty voter rolls.
Well, yeah, and they actually sent ballots to non-American citizens overseas to vote.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So they're going to pull out all the stops to make sure that they win by any means necessary. And if they still lose, they're going to do something to prevent peaceful transfer of power. And even Jamie Raskin has mentioned that. So everybody better buckle up because we're in a big fight for the next several months.
Steve, what do you predict for the next 4 weeks before the election, 5 weeks before the election?
I think there's going to be another attempt on Trump. And I really don't know if we're going to have an election, to be honest with you. But there's no way that they're not going to try again.
Yeah. Brian, prediction about the next 5 weeks.
Well, I was looking at something on X this morning, and it was showing from Disclose TV. Says that U.S. lawmakers are planning for a possible, quote, mass casualty, end quote, event, proposing a constitutional amendment to replace members quickly and change various lines of succession in a national crisis. This thing went out a few hours ago, and it already has 4.8 million views. People just have a feeling that something is about to happen. Is it going to be a power grid? Is it going to be a World War III event? Is it going to be a bank crisis? Is it going to be incinerating an American city? It's just everything's on the table right now because the stakes have never been this high, and the bad guys have never been this exposed, and the good guys have never been this pissed off. So that is my concerned angle. But let me take a positive red pill angle. I think it's just going to be a hemorrhaging of support for Harris and the Democrats. And I think maybe not quite a Walter Mondale 49 state near sweep, but I think Trump is going to trounce Harris, and the Democrat Party is really going to be broken and splintered into pieces because it's turned into a. So that's my hope, and then that's my concern. Counterbalance.
Yeah.
Flip a coin.
Yeah, I predict that I will on Twitter I will like more pictures of Sydney Sweeney this week. That is my prediction for what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm ready to go to. There's not going to be an election.
They're saying it in the comments section. I'm reading the comments here, and people are saying.
I agree with you that there will continue to be hemorrhaging of support for Kamala Harris. What we're dealing with here is what will that lead to? Will it lead to attempting to start World War III? That will result in Joe Biden's removal. I still have enough faith in the military to buy that. And I do agree with Steve. There will be at least one more assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And the other prediction I'm going to make is Diddy will be dead in 10 days. 10 days. Unless this is part of the plan to expose things. But I don't think so. All right.
Diaz for Diddy's death. Diaz for Diddy's death. Okay.
Diddy's dead. Diaz dead. All right. Anybody else have any final thoughts before we kick it out tonight? I want to go eat some chili.
I'm glad you didn't eat it on the air.
Yeah, it would have been bad. Steve, Brooks, Brian, anything you want to say?
I guess Brian is now Brooks.
Oh, sorry.
All right.
Steve, Brian, Blake, anything else you guys want to add, or are we done here today?
I think we covered most of it. I'm trying to think if there's something we left out on the table.
Way to get Sydney Sweeney into it, so I think we're done. Guys, thank you for being here. That's going to wrap it up. I'll be back tomorrow with Jen on Tell the Truth Wednesday. We're going to be talking a lot of interesting financial fluctuations going on right now. We're going to talk about that. We're going to take your questions. She'll do some readings for free, healings. Anybody need a healing? Jen will take care of that. And then Thursday, I don't know about Whiskey and Wisdom with Mark Z tomorrow, probably. And then Thursday, I'm on with Brian, the Strictly Football Show at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Brian, I'm having so much fun with you. I didn't even feel a need to do a Seahawks video this week on their game because it just was like, we didn't learn anything from it. So,
I use that show to bore me into a nap.
Well, you should be using that show to place your prop bets in Vegas through your buddy Mike. That's what you should do.
I'll just send you the dough, and I'll trust that you're going to put it on the right person.
All right, guys. Love you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate each and every one of you out there. I'll be back tomorrow with Jen. Brian and Blake are going to be on Thursday as well. Oh, my God. And then we do the show. We do the football show afterwards. Steve, see you next week. Rock and roll, everybody. This was kind of a quiet week. It's going to get crazy from here on out. And again, remember, Vampire's Ball needs to end. I need that T-shirt. It's Vampire